Welcome to the Mac Power Users. I'm David Sparks, and joined for the very last time, my good friend and yours, Mr. Stephen Hackett. Hello, Stephen. How are you
Hello,
today?
David. I'm good. How are you?
I'm a little sad. This is my last episode I get to record with you. I wore my official Mac Power Users sweatshirt today with Stephen Hackett orange on it in your honor,
I appreciate
and
that.
I think it's fitting for our last show together. But it's going to be fun. We'll talk about that in just a minute. On more power users, we're going to go a little deeper on how you came around the decision and search for a new host. And I think it'll be fun, just a little bit more inside baseball on everything that's gone down. But I guess for folks who missed last week's episode, we should bring them up to speed. What's going on, Stephen?
Yeah. So it is my last episode of Mac Power Users. We spoke about this last week, and I have our respective blog posts in the show notes. I've got a need elsewhere to spend more time in both the business of relay and cross forward. And that meant, unfortunately, bidding goodbye to Mac Power Users after 7 years, which every time I typed that or said it, I double checked it because there's no way it's been that long. But it has been that long. So yeah, it's a season of change for me, but I'm still around. Still going to be writing 512 pixels. Still going to be on Connected. We're going to talk about a bunch of that stuff in this episode. And yeah, but I'm super, super excited about the next chapter of the show.
Yeah, and in fairness, Mac Power Users takes a lot of time. So I
It does.
totally get that being the thing that you've got to step back from. And, the audience has been great. In the week since we made the announcement, we've had so many kind emails and thoughts and comments come in. Just this morning, I got a video for you I'm going to forward to you from our friend in the Netherlands, Vim, who was thanking you. Just people have been, there's been an outpouring of love, and I really love that.
Yeah, it's been really cool.
Okay, so today's show is a celebration of Stephen on the Mac Power Users. We got a lot of listener questions. Thanks for sending them all in. But I thought we'd start just kind of talking amongst ourselves, and I titled these two sections of the outline the sad part and the happy part. So let's start with the sad part. We already shared that you're leaving. But I just wanted to reflect on the beginning of this. I didn't know much about Steven. And then I remember when you first landed on my radar was when somebody was giving you grief about your logo. And I read that. I'm like, this seems like kind of a cool guy putting up with nonsense. And then you and I started emailing, and we met at some Apple event, and we went and had ice cream together,
Yeah.
But at the same time, somebody had written me and said, you got to get this guy in your show. He keeps calling Mac Power Users his white whale. Is that true?
It is true. Yeah. I mean, so I started writing what is now 512 pixels. It was Fork Bomber back in the day, different name, in 2008. And so, yeah, I'd been around, and yeah, Mac Power Users, even just a few years in was such an institution. I was like, man, I'd love to be a guest on Mac Power Users one day, like to join the ranks of people like Merlin and Brett Terpstra. In fact, I have a picture of the three of y'all at Macworld that I didn't share with you, but I'm going to put in the show notes for people. And it was just such a cool, it was like such a goal of mine to like have my writing be taken so seriously that like I get an invite on Mac Power Users. And in those early days, I wasn't doing a lot of podcasting. I sort of really started podcasting like 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
But yeah, Macworld 2012, I had expressed interest in going, and our mutual friend Matt Alexander, he worked at an airline at the time, and so he set me up with his like buddy passes. A lot of airline employees get
Yeah.
tickets they can send people, and so he basically paid for me to go to Macworld, and I got what I discovered very quickly was a hotel in a sketchy part of San Francisco with a couple of friends. And I did Macworld 2012, and it was awesome getting to meet people. Like so many people I met on that trip, I'm still friends and colleagues with. Like it's the first time you and I met. It's the first time I met the Studio Neat guys. They have a show on Relay. First time I met Merlin and Sean Blanc and like all these folks who are still in the community. that trip was amazing. And yeah, it was the end of the trip, and you and I ran into each other on the street, and we sat down and had an ice cream date. And I just was like, I think we got done and I like called my wife and I was like, you will never guess what I just did. Like, I just had ice cream with David Sparks, and she's like, who is that? But then I explained, and she got it, and we stayed in touch a lot after that, and I ended up being a guest. I was very thankful to be a guest back when you and Katie were hosting to talk about my writing and what I was doing, and things have just blossomed from there.
I'm looking at this picture, and man, I am a different looking man in that picture. My
All of
hair
y'all look like
is
babies.
completely brown. Yeah, that was fun. I remember that. We did like a shootout. Me, Brett, and Merlin kept taking turns showing tricks. That was a really fun
Yeah, man,
thing.
I have a bunch of pictures from this trip, and just looking through them because I was looking for this picture. I was like, I know I have this picture,
Yeah,
and it's from 2012 because it's at a cool angle,
yeah,
Um, but a lot of events like this, like Macworld died before COVID,
yeah,
but the pandemic killed so many of these events, and it really makes me sad because
yeah,
I think back at how influential this trip was on my career, and I think about events that you and I have both been lucky enough to speak at and to participate in over the years, and there's just so few of those now. It's tough. It's tough to break into the space. It's tough to get to see people. And so I definitely had like a ping of sadness as I was looking through these Macworld photos. Like, we've lost something with these events going away.
yeah. I mean, Macworld was really special. I've been to WWC many times, and
Hmm.
that's really great. It's Apple's thing, and it's kind of an industry developer focused event. But Macworld was about the users. It's about our listeners. And I've said it in the past, but like Macworld was where you could be walking in a hallway and there'd be a group of random strangers sitting on the floor writing Apple scripts together. And
Hmm.
the only place in the world you would find that. And boy, I loved it back in the day. But we have a friendship that kind of bloomed out of that. And when Katie decided to step away, you were, we're going to talk in the after show about how I really went through a process to find a new host. But when Katie left, it was easy. It was like, oh, then it'll be Stephen.
Yeah.
There was no search. There was nothing to be done. I just had to call you and see if you were interested in it.
Yeah.
Um,
That was late 2018.
yeah,
I remember it was a Tuesday. I remember that because you called me. I was walking out my door to go to a meeting,
yeah,
to go to a thing with some friends,
yeah,
small group thing, and we talked on the phone as I was driving. I was like, "Hey, I'm at my friend's house. I need to run or whatever." But I was just blown away, totally blown away. I think at this point, y'all, because MPU had been on Relay for a few years at this point, and I think you had told us that like there was a transition coming.
yeah.
Um, I think, but I was like, I never would have thought. I never would have thought it would have been something I'd ever be asked to do, and it was so humbling. And you were so gracious about it. It was so encouraging. And joining MPU, I wound down a lot of other smaller shows I was
Yeah.
running around doing, and so it let me really focus on just a few podcasts that I had, and right away learned very quickly like this is a different kind of podcast. Like, I mean, don't hear what I'm not saying. Like, we do prep for all of our shows on Relay, but MPU is next level prep. Like, it
Yeah.
is hours per week to do these things, and sometimes over the course of many weeks. Like, we did that Apple Weather episode at the end of the year, and I installed Apple Weather like on the home screen of my phone for a month. Like, I used it for a month and took notes, and it was just a background process all the time. And so much of MPU is about that, and that's one reason I think the show has been so successful, because people notice that level and appreciate that level of work that goes into it. And I love that kind of work. Like, I am happiest at work when I've got a bajillion tabs open and I got Devon Think and I'm like, writing about something or researching something, going really deep. And so being a host really scratched an itch that I already had, kind of oddly enough.
Well, the goal of the show is for everybody to learn something every episode.
Mm. Hmm.
It takes work. Evergreen shows are just really hard compared to like new shows. But I signed up for it when we started the show, and we've kept up with the remit. You delivered the goods, man, which I had no doubt you would. I wanted to talk about things that we'll miss. I thought we could go back and forth. As I think about you, one of the things, because you and I are friends, you're not dying. You and I will
Yeah.
still be talking. But working with you, the thing that people need to know, because this doesn't come out in the show, Stephen has what I would like to call a quiet competence, where when Stephen is on the team, a lot of things just get fixed. Like things work and like friction points disappear. And Stephen, partly because of being at Relay, but also just because of who you are, like I don't even know the number of things that Steven potholes that Steven allowed us to dodge without me even knowing. But I know there are a lot of them. And I'm going to really miss that part of it selfishly because Steven does such a great job. I understand completely why David wants you more over there because I'm sure you're doing the exact same thing for him. But Stephen has this, he's a public image in our little world as somebody who's nerdy and likes to collect Macs, but he is an incredibly competent manager behind it, and I'm definitely going to miss that.
Oh man, thank you. In reflecting about this, the first thing that came to mind for me was when you became full-time Mac Sparky. You had left your firm, but you were still practicing on your own. And in 2022, in January, you announced that you had been thinking about this and preparing for this for a year. And it was such an honor to be part of those conversations. And like as you were making these decisions and figuring out what to do, because like when I quit my job way back in 2015, I went out on my own and fully in content, right? Like I was writing for a bunch of websites and doing a lot more things than I do now, but it
Yeah,
was all content based.
yeah,
But your path was so different where I think the phrase that you used at the time was like you hung up your own shingle as a solo lawyer and you were doing your content business. And then you made like the second step to give up practicing law and just helping and for whatever little help maybe I was able to offer, but talking through that, figuring out how to communicate it, right? We did a whole show where I basically basically kind of interviewed you about the process and the plan
yeah.
and seeing the labs come online and that being obviously a huge part of this. That whole process just I know it was special to you, but it's also really special to me for the little part that I got to play in it. And I'm so psyched that it's gone so well for you.
I think after Daisy and I discussed it, I think you might have been the first person I called about this because
Maybe.
you were in there with me, and that's really nice. Another thing I'm going to miss about you is our podcasting rhythm. Now, let me explain this one a little bit. So I used to be a jazz musician, and there were I remember particular people that I played with, one drummer and a piano player. And when you'd play with them, they would listen to you and you would listen to them. Like when you would solo and you would start like papa ta ta ta, you'd like start doing some rhythm or something, then the drummer would match it in the background, like almost like you're having a conversation with music. And it is, if any musicians are out there have experienced, it is like, it's almost like it's a moment where you almost like transcend life. It's just
Mhm.
so beautiful when you have this rhythm and in you're creating music and it goes back and forth. And I've almost from the beginning, I've had that experience of podcasting with Steven. I mean, podcasting is a hard thing. You often don't see the other person. Sometimes there's another person there, and you really want it to be a nice conversation that flows easily. You try and tee it up for the other guy tries and tee up for you. And Steven and he's like my favorite drummer. It's just
Mhm.
like we can so much converse, the rhythm of our show is just so wonderful. And boy, that is not easy, but for us, it comes natural. And I will miss that rhythm of talking to you on microphone.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and some podcasts and some hosts take a long time to find that. And I think we were really fortunate to find it really quickly, which is, we're obviously both experienced, right? We've both been doing this a long time before we were doing it together, and that certainly helped. But yeah, we have a chemistry and a friendship that is the foundation of our partnership here on Mac Power Users. And again, it comes through, right? The little jokes and the ability to riff, and we do all this prep, but then we'll make a left turn into something weird. Usually it's you, and I got to reel you back in, right? All of that stuff is a lot of fun, and it makes a show like this, I think, much more entertaining than what it says on the tin, right? Like, yeah, you want somebody to learn something every time, and that's totally true, but you also want it to be entertaining and fun and interesting, right? To keep people around, and finding that balance is a little bit tricky. Another one for you is your other nerdy interest. So many people in our community, right? If you're a nerd about one thing, you're going to be a nerd about something else, right? Just kind of how we are as people. You mentioned music, obviously your love of music and your creativity. You said you used to be a jazz musician, like you're still a jazz musician. Like, I don't think you ever leave that behind. But the woodworking, the 3D printing, the making, right? Like you are a maker at heart, I think. And you have all these gifts that you can write, you can podcast, you can build things, and just that process that you go through of, I have a problem to solve, or I have something I want to say or share, and like finding the best way to do that. I've learned a lot about making just through watching you, and we have sort of this like ongoing text chain of like projects we're doing around the house, and I'm in the middle of reinforcing a built-in bookcase because my wife has asked for her birthday for a sliding library ladder, because we have this like big built-in bookcase in our living room. It's been like her dream since she was like a little girl to like have a library ladder. I just
Sure.
learned all this.
Like
And
Bell.
so, I've been working on that, like sending you pictures and asking you questions about it, and it's been fun.
Yeah. The one thing I will miss also is you're you have a problem, Stephen. Let's just be honest. You don't just collect old Macs. You really like new Macs, and I love throwing stray shots at you about buying new hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you don't even like acknowledge it when I do it, which is makes it even more fun for me. And like, whenever we talk about some upcoming hardware, it's like, the M5 MacBook Pro is coming soon, Steven, and your M4 is looking long in the tooth. I can do that to you, and you just let it go by. But then occasionally you do just buy the new one. So yeah, that's just, I don't know. I'm going to miss being able to do that to you.
I remember when I bought my Mac Pro in early 2020,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
It's the most money I've ever spent on a
Yeah,
computer.
yeah.
It was ridiculous. But then like we talked about it on the show, and I got razzed by basically everybody in my life about that computer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's fun. Like, because part of this gig is like, and being interested in this stuff is like, we do upgrade way more often than the regular person, or we may change computers or phones mid-cycle when it doesn't make any sense, right? Like, yeah, totally guilty of it.
Yeah.
Totally guilty.
And honestly, I lose cover because like now I'm already thinking about the M5 Mac Studio, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not here anymore to make me look like the reasonable one on this.
That's right. Yeah, it's fantastic. Your support and care for like me and my family and the other things that I do is really important to me. We're going to talk a little bit later on about the process of this, but from the first phone call, which I was nervous about, like, not because I thought you were going to respond badly. Like, I was just nervous to have the conversation, because it's like, once you have the conversation, all this that you've been thinking about is real. And you were so supportive and caring about my decision making. I miss an episode a year because we do the St. Jude fundraiser. I usually miss another episode of the year because our son is at St. Jude doing his annual checkups, right? Like, I have a lot of complication in my life, and you are always so supportive of whatever I need to do. Like, there have been times, right? It's like, hey, I know we're recording in 2 days, but like we got to, we have this or that going on. And you're like, yeah, hey, I'll take care of it. You still haven't missed an episode of this podcast, which is wild. Like it's an unbelievable streak. And you always being understanding of if I've got something going on, or, even just your support of our St. Jude fundraiser, right? That's when I think about my legacy, when my career is over, that's it. Like it's that mountain of money that the relay community has raised, and your support of that on Mac Sparky and here is like, it's so awesome. So yeah, that means a lot to me.
Yeah, I think I'll miss that as well. The St. Jude involvement. I mean, I'm still on the network, but because I make a show with you, I get to check in with you every week.
Yeah.
Edit point. Sorry, Bert. Yeah, I'll miss it as well because, I mean, I'm still on the network, but I enjoy kind of talking to you every week. How's it going? And hearing about the meetings you're going to and the plans you're making. And I guess we'll have to like find a way for me to bug you via text message or to get on the phone once in a while. But yeah, being a co-host with you allowed me to kind of get an insider view to all the work you do for that.
Yeah, it's already started. We nailed down the artwork theme last week. I don't know what we're doing, man. It's almost year round now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it should be. It's a huge deal.
It is a huge deal. And our artist, Jelly, our artist for that, like, he does it. He volunteers every year. Like every year I try to pay him. And every year he's like, I will not take your money. Because it's important to him too, like in his family. Like they have gotten swept up in the St. Jude mission too. And, but he works like more than a full-time job. And so, I try to get the theme and like sort of my initial ideas to him early in the year, so we're not pressed for time as the calendar rolls around. I'm very excited about the theme this year. Very excited.
Anything else you'll miss?
I'm going to really miss just the community around this show. I've done a lot of podcasts over the years, and of course I own half of Relay. So like I have my hand in every show that we do as, one of the owners. There is something distinctly different about the MPU audience. And that was it took some getting used to, because things like the forums and like the email, like we just hear so much more from our audience than I've ever heard on any of my other shows. Part of that is the MPU is the biggest show I've ever done, but a lot of it is like our community's really engaged with the show, and we get great feedback, thoughtful feedback. That's the thing that really impresses me about the MPU community, is that they are thoughtful about their technology, and they're thoughtful about what we say and how we interact. And I can tell you, because I know that is not true of other podcast audiences, right? Like the feedback we get on Connected, or like the feedback the ATP boys get, like it's good feedback, but it's not at the level that MPU gets. And it's a great, like it's a conversation. You talked about like the jazz, improvising kind of feel. I feel like the show has that with its audience to a degree too.
Yeah.
And that's really special and something that's, I think, unique in our space.
I just got an email from a listener, Hill, yesterday, who's been following Apple since they began, and he had really insightful thoughts. Hill is 93.
Awesome.
I know I always feel like we have a very smart audience, that we get to use that when we generate these outlines and go into these deep concepts. Our audience is going to stick with it. They're going to get it. I also want to talk a bit about the way the show has matured during your watch. One idea you had that I really like and will continue after you leave is the state of the platforms shows we do, where on an annual basis we just take apart and look at how Apple's doing on the various platforms it makes. I think that's been a real nice addition to the show.
I think so too. We've never wanted MPU to be a news show, right? Occasionally we do it, WWDC, sometimes Apple hardware or software announcements, but we try to be evergreen. And that's what I like about the state of the platforms when we first started talking about it, is like it's an opportunity once a year, basically, to put a flag in the ground of like, this is where these platforms are. This is where Apple is. And it's really fascinating to me because each time we've done it several times now, and each time I go back and listen to the previous episode, just like as I'm working, just in the background to hear what we said, and it's an amazing marker every year of how things are going, without being newsy, right? Without covering rumors like other shows do that, but through the lens of the other things we talk about, like using our technology to make our work and make our lives better. So yeah, I'm super happy that those have gone well, and I'm glad that y'all will continue them because I think it's become an important part of the show.
It's also during your watch that we got invited to Cupertino a few times for WWC presentations and Apple interviews, and I feel like that's special.
It is, yeah. We got to go to Dub 19 as press. I have my press badge hanging up behind me. You and I have been to WWCs for years. My first one was 2013, but it was the first time as press, and it was the Mac Pro launch, and we got to talk to Apple about that. We're going to talk about that more in a minute, I think. But yeah, really cool. And we've gotten to go in now in the kind of new version of WWC and record the show live in Apple's podcast studio. And that's really special. So yeah, I feel like the show has also gained more eyes within Apple over the years as well. Like I know for a fact there are people at Apple who listen to the show regularly and care about what we think and say.
Yeah. The something else we kind of worked on during your tenure was Software Club, where we bring software developers in and try and feature especially small indie developers. And we always did deep dives, but we did also kind of some more deep research shows like the recent Apple Weather Show. And we've had some really great some content with you here.
Yeah, the Software Club, that's a lot of fun, right? Talking with a developer about their app, the decisions that go into it, the type of people they're trying to serve with it. All those conversations are fascinating. I also really love the roundups, right? Where one of the early ones we did was clipboard managers. So like at some point, dude, I had so many installed in my Mac, like I'd get the beach ball for a second when I hit copy. It's like, cause there's like 8 apps trying to grab the
it's
clipboard.
Like the whole screen fill.
We put our own technology in jeopardy on the show sometimes, but it is often. You got Claudebot running around anywhere?
Don't get me started.
No,
that's a future episode.
And yeah, so those are also fun too. And like so many of those times is like, oh gosh, like in this research, an app that maybe I've used for 10 years, I didn't know it did all these other things, right? Or you find in the roundups, you find an app that, maybe I was using something else, but through this research, through this outline, I'm actually going to switch personally because I found something that better fits my needs. That's fun.
Yeah, I love it when you bring up an app that for me is like perfect Goldilocks of not too hard, but complicated enough to give me what I need. I love it when I switch apps based on some recommendation you bring in.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the happy part now. We talked about the sad part. Let's just reflect a bit. I was going to ask you, what are some of your favorite moments during your 7 years in the chair?
Yeah. 2 came to mind immediately. One was episode 485, which I just mentioned, where we got to interview the product manager for the 2019 Mac Pro. He had not been on a podcast or really in public before, and I don't think he's been since, best I can tell. But it was a delightful conversation.
Did we wreck it for him?
Maybe. Doug Brooks is his name. Did a great job. And we learned about he was telling us stories about how they designed the computer and the testing. Like, we really got to do a deep dive into it and really had access to something that really no one else did. And that was really cool. But the all-time favorite is, I can't believe it was just a couple months later, episode 500.
Yeah.
It was recorded live at MacStock. And I asked for questions from the community, and you didn't know what they were. And I got to interview you about the show and everything else live on stage. That's also the trip where I took apart several people's computers to upgrade them.
Yeah.
And like in the lobby.
Yeah.
I got some pictures of that in the show notes. It was a great trip. And other than the extremely sketchy house that John Voorhees and I rented. It was great. And that live show was awesome. And, a really core part of the audience was there at Macstock. And it will be a treasured memory.
Yeah, that was. I remember walking. It's like there's like a cafeteria, and there's a bunch of people standing around a table, and in the middle of it, Steven using like a paint scraper on a Mac Mini to. I don't know what you were doing over there. That was great.
Yeah,
that was great.
I replaced something in an iMac, and then Rosemary had brought. I think we were putting an SSD in her Mac Mini or RAM or something.
Yeah,
I forget, but yeah, doing it with an audience is really stressful.
Yeah. I'll tell you
fun.
one of the things I really enjoyed having you here for, especially with your knowledge of Apple history, is the Apple Silicon Revolution. Like all that kind of happened while you were here, and I thought your insight based on your kind of historical knowledge of Apple's silicon changes in the past, it just really, I think, added to the coverage we were able to do.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the arc of the Mac in my 7 years on the show, right? 2018. 2019 is pretty grim, especially the laptops, right? Like how many
bleak. Yeah.
How much did we talk about that? I mean, we had to, right? Because like it was bad. And then this like spark in June of 2020 when it's announced, and then that fall when the first ones came out. Like my daughter has my M1 MacBook Pro, the weird one with the touch bar, and I was doing something on it for her the other night. I was like, this computer is still fast. Like, she's using Chrome, she's using Word, like she's a high school student, right? She's using it for school stuff. But I was like, oh, this computer still has it. And it's, 5 years old, 5.5 years old now. The Mac's trajectory hardware wise in that time period is just astounding.
Any other favorite memories?
Oh man. It's another live show, but we did a show in Chicago and we kept Rosemary Orchard and Mike Hurley from London a secret.
Yeah.
And then called them on stage. I cannot believe we kept that secret. Like Mike flew across the ocean for this show and we kept it. No one knew. Like I would thought for sure, because we were in Chicago a couple of days before the show. I was like, we're going to be out to lunch and someone's going to spot him. Like, but it just went perfectly. That was fantastic. And so many guest interviews, right? From sheep farming to using Macs in education to, I mean, everything in between, that we've been able to talk to such a broad number of people about how they use Apple gear. It's really it's eye-opening, right? It's like one of the things I've learned is that just because I use my technology in one way does not mean everybody does. And people use this stuff in all sorts of ways and scenarios that are never ending. And that's been really eye-opening to me over the years.
Do you have do you have a list of favorite guests? Have you thought of some of your favorite guests?
Oh, man. Yeah, I've got a few. I mean, our first guest when I joined was Gruber. And it was the first time I talked to him on a show. I've done a couple since. And that was fantastic. He was very generous with his time. We had Neil on from MimeStream, the founder of MimeStream, the Mac Mail app. And he had not done a lot of podcasts. I think we were maybe his second. But he spent time at Apple. So we got to talk about that. We got to talk about his team. Like MimeStream is bootstrapped. They don't have a lot of VC money. They have no VC money as far as I know. His plans for the app, like, it was really great. And, we got to give him a little grief about a mobile app, which is now in test flight, or when are you going to add something other than Gmail?
Oh man, I gave him such a hard time. That's why.
Yeah.
I'm surprised if he ever comes back after I gave him such a hard time.
I think he gets that all the time from his users.
Yeah.
We've had so many other great people. Tyler Stallman's been on a bunch. He's a friend of ours. TJ's been on several times. Like, so many great people. It's really hard to narrow that list down.
Yeah. We have great guests here.
We really do. We really do.
All right. Favorite Mac Power User thing that never made it to air?
Oh, man. I don't... Next to my name in the outline, there's a blank space. I honestly don't know. Like...
Okay.
Do you have anything?
I do. I absolutely do.
Okay.
So when we went to the first WWDC together, at some point we're walking through a hallway and we're just outside the doors before we go into the big room where they're going to announce the new Mac Pro. And you turn around and look at me, and you look like a 5-year-old that just found all of his presents under the Christmas tree. I mean, you gave me a smile then, Stephen, that like went to your core essence, and I wish I had a picture of that.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's I've been to keynotes since then. It was also my first Apple keynote ever, actually. I've been to one iPhone, I've been to other WWDCs now, but it was I was so glad to experience one that was still the way the old ones were.
Yeah.
I mean, the size of that room is like hard to explain. Huge, huge, thousands of people. I remember I was sitting next to somebody because it was like a line of relay people and some of our other friends.
Yeah.
But I was on the end, and I was sitting next to a woman who had Pages open. I think I told this story at the time, and she was translating or editing Apple press releases in other languages. It wasn't Chinese or Japanese, but it was something else. I don't know, but it was, and she was flying in Pages and on her keyboard. Like, this clearly was her job, and she was, sending them off to somebody to publish, I guess, as things were being announced. I was like, it's like one small person, one small task, but like thousands of people go into the, thousands of hours, thousands of people work on those keynotes. And it was cool not only to be there, to see the Mac Pro, to see our friends, to be there in person, but like also to see someone working like in their little slice of the organization was also pretty cool.
We'll put a edit point. We'll put a sponsor read there, the sponsor read.
Yeah.
And so I guess what we should do, Stephen, before I start is just, I guess, strike out any ones that you don't want to be asked as we go through it.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of fake it as we go along.
Kind of answered the first one.
You've already put answers in that.
Yeah, I did a couple of them. If that one's interesting. The one about a guest who surprised you, I want to make fun of that. Remember that guy we had on who was like doing music that was so bad? But I don't want to call him out.
Don't call him out. Just say once we had a YouTuber.
Yeah. Let's see.
We've never had an episode that we almost didn't release.
No, we've never killed one. We've met in person. Take that out.
What topic have you covered the most times? All right, Stephen, we asked for listener questions. Boy, did we get them. Thanks, everybody, for sending them in. John wrote in, what's the worst technical disaster in your run on MPU? John goes straight to, where the body's buried.
Yeah. The sound for that Doug Brooks interview was really bad that year. So Apple now, like that WWDC's at Apple Park, they have a podcast studio they build. That room is actually a yoga studio, and then they like put podcast stuff in it. It's not there all the time, but at night in 19, it was basically at the end of a hallway in the convention center. Do you remember this? It was upstairs of the loading dock.
Yeah.
And the sound was so bad. And I told Apple, like, after the episode was done, I emailed our person. I was like, you have to fix this. Like, it's not like people aren't going to want to do this. It's got to sound better than this. And then we had COVID and they built their own thing.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad because it was such an important episode, right? It was really like the biggest episode that I think we had done up to that point in terms of breaking new ground. But there's always the normal stuff, right? It's like, oh, I goofed up my recording and we got to use the Zoom backup, or someone's internet connection dies to an interview. There's all that sort of normal stuff, but I think we have it pretty dialed most of the time.
Yeah.
But man, the audio that week it still kills me.
Yeah, we have a lot of belts and suspenders, so hopefully things don't go wrong.
We do.
Reason. But yeah, I agree. I remember as we were recording it, you could hear people talking on the second floor, and I'm just thinking, this is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's us interviewing an Apple executive, and geez, that was rough. Mike writes in, you're leaving the show. Now you can tell us what's the best and worst parts of working with David. I almost didn't put this in. Mike, that was kind of a mean question. Let's let it fly, Stephen.
Yeah,
okay.
No. I think the best part about working with you is your thoughtfulness and consideration into our topics. Not only what topics we do, but in the preparation of them as well. we have so many episode ideas that you come up with, and sometimes at first I'm just like, is there enough here? We ask each other that, like, is there enough here?
Yeah.
Um, and you don't miss. Like, it's you got a very good track record of knowing what makes a good Mac Power users.
I think I have a permanent background process running on MPU content.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so many times you will have somebody on focus or something comes up in the labs, and you're like, we got to do this, right? And it doesn't miss. The worst part is you have a bad habit of not uploading your files when we're done, and
I
Jim or
deserve
I
that.
have to chase you down.
I deserve that. I fully deserve that. Can I say I've been better at it the last year or two?
You have been better at it for sure.
I actually wrote it down of like things I could do better, and I really tried.
Yeah.
I tried, you know what the problem is? I tried to automate it, and automation sometimes failed, and then I wouldn't realize it. And then I'd like go out of town, and you'd be like, dude, where's your files?
Yeah. I think at one point you had to like remote into your computer from Hawaii or something to give me something.
I totally deserve that. I totally deserve that.
Yeah. I've never automated that. I just sit here and do it. And
yes, that's what I do now. And there hasn't been a problem in a long time. Thanks, Mike, for that question. Really appreciate it. Jennifer, do you remember the first episode you recorded together? What was that like?
Yeah, I do. It was Stephen Who is the title.
Yeah, that's right.
Which in hindsight, it's funny, but
yeah,
anyways.
That wasn't. You should have told me that wasn't cool.
Yeah. Episode 464.
Yeah.
I was just so nervous, right? The goal of this episode was to introduce me to the audience. Because I'd been on a couple of episodes. I think I've been on 2. But, the shows I was doing at the time were all much smaller. And I was writing, but 512 Pixels definitely isn't as big as it is today. And so it really was like there were going to be people who didn't know who I was. And we had to talk about my history and my love of the Mac and all of these things. And I just remember being really nervous to record it, but also like nervous that people were going to like it and like me. And I'm sure some people didn't, and that's okay. But I think it went well in hindsight. I have not ever re-listened to it, and I probably never will. But hopefully it was okay enough, at least.
Yeah, I mean, and what you discover then is the Mac Power Use audience is very generous. Like even in the last week, people are like, man, I'm going to really miss Stephen, but hey, Stephen Robles, welcome to the show. We got you, and that's kind of the audience. I think they're very, I don't know how I got so lucky to have this great audience.
It really is. You've gotten a lot of emails too. I've gotten a lot of emails, a lot of social media stuff. There's a whole thread in the forums about it.
Yeah.
Mary, my wife, asked me over the weekend, she's like, how's the feedback been? Like, how are you feeling, now that it's out? Or it was before the episode came out, but, she didn't know the timeline. So I answered her last night. Finally, I was like, hey, like I've gotten some feedback now, and it's been universally gracious was the phrase I used. People are excited about Stephen, and they should be. I'm excited about Stephen, but the kindness people have shown me has just been awesome.
Yeah. Patricia, what does your recording setup look like now versus when you started?
I mean, other than it was like 6 computers ago and I have a better microphone, it's really very similar. We are using Riverside now instead of Zoom, but I got Audio Hijack running. What you hear is the Audio Hijack recording, right? That's what we send to the editor. I think that's the biggest change since we started, for me at least. When I joined the show, I took over editing from the previous editor, and I edited it for a couple of years. And I did that because editing a podcast is the best way to get to know that podcast. Even though I'd listened to MPU for years, I mean, I listened since really very close to the beginning. When you edit it, it's different. And I took that over for a couple of years, and it just got to a point where it wasn't the best use of my time. And Jim Metzendorf, who edits the show now, he was already working with Relay and was looking to expand that role. And he's better than I am anyways. So that's probably the biggest change, is that Jim is doing the editing. And I don't think if we hadn't, I actually don't think we said anything about it until way after it had happened. And no one knew. Like, he does such a good job. He what is interesting about Jim in particular. Hi, Jim. Jim edits a bunch of shows on Relay. He edits the majority of shows on Relay now, I think, and they all have their own personalities still because he respects the way the show was recorded and edited before he was on board, and that's really important to me because MPU shouldn't be edited like Connected. That shouldn't be edited like Reconcilable Differences, and Jim knows that and can adapt. And so for me, that's the biggest difference, I think, from the beginning is that I'm no longer spending, a day in Logic combing through the episode. Now Jim does.
Susan, how do you decide who covers which topic on an episode?
Yeah. So before we record an episode, we get on the phone about half an hour before, and it used to be a Google Sheet. Now it's a database in Notion with all of our upcoming episodes. We actually have slots from now to the end of the year. And, we pencil stuff in, like we kind of know when the iPhone's going to be, we kind of know when WWC is going to be, but generally we work a couple of months in advance if things are going well. And so we just talk through it like, hey, sometimes it's a pitch, right? Like I brought the Apple weather pitch and you asked me like, is there enough there? And I said, I think there is. Thankfully there was. And so that one was really heavily me, right? Others are really heavily you. Others are very split down the middle. It just kind of depends on whose idea it was, the type of show it is. If it's a guest in particular, if one of us knows them better than the other, we'll take the lead on that. But then sometimes it's just you're on vacation or I'm on vacation and like the other person is going to pick it up. So,
yeah.
But at the end of the day, it all shakes out. I feel like our show prep is very evenly divided and, it kind of takes care of itself in the end. But we do talk about it. We think about it. Nothing goes undecided in MPU. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We try to be thoughtful. Tim says, Stephen, what's your favorite Mac of all time?
I'm going to say the Titanium PowerBook G4. It was not the first Mac I used. It was kind of the first Mac that was mine, even though it belonged to my employer at the time. He let me, a high school and then college student, use it basically as my personal computer, which was incredible. But it's like the first modern Mac laptop. It was like, it's metal, right? It's thin, it's sexy. Like it kind of is like Genesis for where the MacBook Pro still is today, right? Like the PowerBooks before the Titanium, like chunky black plastic, they're interesting in their own right for sure. But the Titanium one was like, it was a big shift and it coincided with me coming to the Mac in a big way. And so I have a couple of them. I've got one on the bookshelf across from my desk and I love those things.
It's the one you have an emotional connection to.
It is.
That's why, right?
Absolutely.
Stephen, from Christopher, what's one opinion or habit around productivity on Apple platforms that you've completely changed your mind on during your run? What caused the shift? What would 2018 Stephen be surprised by?
That I'm using so many of Apple's built-in applications. This has been a running theme for us for years. Notes, reminders, calendar, contacts, right? Some of them were better than others back in the day, but notes and reminders in particular have gotten so good over the last several years. It's amazing to me to think that I use Apple Notes and reminders to like run my life. There's still obviously room for other applications, but if you had told me back then, like you're going to lean into these and use them and like them, I'm like, no way. Like, cause they were baby apps. Like they were not mature back then, but they are now.
They were joke apps, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The first couple of versions of like reminders in particular was like, what are we doing? But they've come a really long way. Apple takes them seriously. And I remember the first time we did an episode, I don't know when it was, but the first time we did an episode covering, I think notes kind of in depth, I was like, oh, like this is all I need. Like it's more than I need in some ways. And they continue to get better. That's the single biggest change, I think, for me in terms of productivity over the years.
We had a lot of like nice notes in the feedback. I'm just going to read a couple of them. Kyle wrote in talking about how he really appreciated Stephen's willingness to try things others are afraid to tackle. And especially he wanted to shout out Stephen for getting him on Unify
Yes.
and share with Stephen that his wife does not miss the Unify recommendations. Unify came up a couple times. I also saw a note from someone saying, "Oh, I love that the new Stephen is also a Unify guy." So the circle is complete. Tim wrote in that he was sick in the early 20s and spent a lot of time in the hospital, and he said MPU gave him a link to normalcy until he could re-enter the real world. And thanks for your time over the years. That really
that's
touched
really cool.
me, that one. It's weird. You forget that people actually listen to the show. When you make it, you just focus on the show. Adam says Stephen was his gateway to Relay after he joined MPU. He discovered Connected and Upgrade and Cortex and finding Mike on Connected. He became a member of several shows. Thanks for bringing delight to the communities and shores. You really were kind of the gateway into Relay for a lot of our listeners, I think.
Yeah, I remember, I think we talked a little bit about this last week, but I remember when y'all reached out about bringing MPU to Relay, and I was just like flabbergasted. I mean, again, a big show, an important show, and I called Mike. I was like, hey, like, I want to do it. Do you want to do it? Like, let's work this out, right? And for a while after that, every time y'all published an episode, it would break the CMS because it was a level of traffic we just hadn't done before. And so we had to really beef up some things. And now the CMS can handle, basically anything, hopefully. But MPU joining Relay is like one of those big moments in our company, right? Like Jason Snell, when he left Macworld to do his own thing, wanting to do a tech show with us. We were like 2 weeks old. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. And an MPU joining is definitely like on that same list. It was such a big deal.
I get some joy out of the fact that we broke Relay. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. It was great for me. Sitting at home Sunday night is like having dinner with the family and the website explodes. But the trust that you and Katie had in Mike and I and in our company, that we could sell the ads, that we could bring in the history of the show, right? Like, it was a lot of work. But now I can't imagine Relay without MPU. Like, it has become such a fabric of what we do as a network. And so that I'm very, very happy that you picked up the phone that day.
We had a lot of very nice notes. I just did a few of them here, but thank you everybody who sent those notes in. They were very, very nice and very much appreciated. Just the last few questions. Emily said, Stephen, will you still be listening to MPU? So I'm looking at you right now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, right. I love the show. I listened before I was on. Being on the show, I'm a fan of the show. Like, that is going to continue. I love what you do. I love what Stephen does. And I think that y'all together is going to be fantastic. And so, yeah, it's not going anywhere in Overcast. It's staying right where it is.
If Greg says, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice before starting MPU, what would it be?
That the sort of anxiety I felt in the early days that wasn't warranted. Like, there was nothing about you or our working relationship in the beginning to cause that. It was like the size of the audience and
self-imposed.
And so I think knowing earlier, like, that we were doing a good job and that I had not come in and wrecked the place. It took a while to get to that understanding internally. So I would love to have known that beforehand. The other thing too is just to really embrace the community and feedback. At first, that was a lot to kind of take in because I hadn't had that level of response to things I had done before. And it was a little overwhelming at first, and just like the amount of email, the amount of comments, and now like I've internalized that, and now I've come to really appreciate that feedback, like I said a few minutes ago. But that took some getting used to. Just like, my other shows, they got feedback. I get comments, things I write, emails, things I write, but MPU feedback's next level, and that took some getting used to.
All right. Well, gang, at this point, we've got a visitor just showed up with us, Stephen Robles. Welcome to the Mac Power Users.
Well, thanks so much, David, and other Stephen as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome Stephen in, and this is your chance, Stephen R., to ask Stephen any questions he has as you sit down in the chair behind him.
Well, Stephen, wanted to thank you. I mean, for the opportunity that I get to come and be on this show, and for the last 7 years have been great. I was listening to the last few episodes with you and David, and you guys have such wonderful chemistry and had created such a great show. And so I will do my best to take care of it. But what do I need to do now as a Mac Power user? I was listening to you guys talk about Keyboard Maestro and utilities. I was like, I think I need to be more of a power user. What do I need to do, Stephen, to be a real power user?
I mean, I felt the same way early on. It's like, oh, we're going to cover Keyboard Maestro, Better Touch Tool, or any number of utilities, right? And no one other than David Sparks knows everything about all of them, right? And so what I learned was like, I can spend time with something, in the weeks leading up to an episode and get a good feel for it and be able to talk about it. And so it's really, I think, less about running out and like installing a bunch of stuff and like changing up your workflow, because you have your workflow with your YouTube channel and all the other things that you do. But I think for me, it's much more about like tapping into that spirit of curiosity, right? Like when the three of us were talking about this, like that was sort of how I described you to David. It was like, I see in your YouTube work and, your other show is like wanting to know more, but then learning that and teaching it to somebody else, I think is the spirit of the show. And so, yeah, when Keyboard Maestro comes around, or some other utility, right, that you don't use, or that you maybe not as familiar with, like it's getting in there and learning it and figuring it out. And I get the sense that you and I are very similar in that way, that we really enjoy that sort of work, right? Like,
I'm always tempted.
Yeah, you like to push things, with shortcuts, it's really easy to break it. So that's a bad example. But, pushing things, learning, teaching, it's all that stuff.
I'm always tempted to upend my entire task system when a new task app is launched, or I see somebody talk about it. And so, yeah, I love exploring. I installed OpenClaw, previously Maltbot, previously Claudebot, after David told me about it. And so we could certainly talk about that soon, too.
Yeah, Stephen R. and I have already started infecting each other with purchases and experiments in the background. So we got plenty coming up. I just wanted to say to the audience that one of the biggest advocates, because, finding a new co-host is not easy, but one of the biggest advocates for Stephen Robles was Stephen Hackett. Stephen was hugely in favor of you coming in here. And I just think that the two of you, I'm sorry you two are passing in the night. I think both of you are so excellent for the show and the audience.
Well, look, David. So Stephen, if you're not aware, David has never missed an episode of MPU.
He has told me, yes.
Ever. What episode number is this? 835?
Yeah.
So maybe I failed in 7 years to get him to take a week off. But if you're successful at it, you and I can do a show together. Like, I'm not going anywhere.
Maybe.
And so, maybe we can do a dual Stephen show at some point. But
Stephen Squared.
Stephen Squared, that's right. We even spell it the same way. This caused some confusion in Slack when I added you to the Relay Slack. Is like, because I had my first name as a keyword in Slack, so someone just said my name, I got a notification, because not everybody does like the little @ symbol or whatever. That ain't going to work anymore. So I think we both turned that feature off, so we're not getting like pinged as each other all the time.
Yeah. I just want to say too, like, I have followed all of your work for many years. I remember Mac Power Users on previous networks, and I've been listening to tech podcasts for so long, and it's surreal to me to be in a Slack with all these names that I've been listening to and reading and watching from afar for years. And so it is truly an honor to be on the Relay.fm network. I never thought that would be possible, but then to be co-hosting with David Sparks and talking to you, Stephen. So it's just been an awesome and surreal experience. So thank you for inviting me. Really.
I mean, how do you think I feel? All these people work on my network, right? Like Merlin, Mann, and John Syracuse want to do a show. They want to do it with us. It's like, what, when MPU want to join us, like Gray with Cortex, like, I feel the same way. I really do. And Relay's been very fortunate over the years to like really foster this like creative space for people to do really good work. And yeah, you are, in some ways, it's surprising to me that you haven't always been there. I think what you're doing and your level of work perfectly aligns with how Mike and I think about Relay and what we want it to mean to the Apple community. And so you are a natural fit there. And don't be nervous. No one bites, James Thompson is in there. That's a big deal. You can ask him about PCalc at any time.
Yeah,
so,
and the Relay and the Mac Power Users specifically audience is already super into you coming on the show, Stephen. So you're gonna do fine. Before we wrap up, I had a couple notes. Stephen is not dying,
No.
but he's leaving the show. But I just wanted to publicly acknowledge a few things to Stephen. The first is that the fact that you're leaving the show does not give you an excuse to stop sending me like random pictures of the cabling under your desk or your Unify setup or whatever. So I expect that all to continue, Stephen.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I've had the pleasure of years of collaboration with you now, and so you're in my closest circle of friends. So I really appreciate everything you've done, and I just want to acknowledge on the show the impact you've had on the community. I mean, 512 Pixels is a big deal. Relay FM is a big deal. I don't think anybody has picked up the call for Apple history preservation like you have, and with the way you have, and I think that's something we all have to be thankful of you for. I really am, the whole thing with St. Jude, like Stephen Hackett is the kind of guy who says, these guys helped my kid when he was sick, so I'm going to do everything I can to help him. And Stephen goes and raises millions of dollars for them. I mean, that's the kind of man he is, and he's always been super generous with me. The thing we didn't talk about in today's episode is both of us have faced, significant personal challenges over this 7 years. And Stephen has always been there for me when I had one and willing to talk, and people don't realize what, I think they only see a sliver of Stephen because he's a bit reserved, but I've seen the whole thing. I've seen how active he is with his church and how engaged he is with his kids. And, I just want to say, Stephen is a good man. And I just want to acknowledge that, having worked with you. That's the thing I'm going to miss most about you, is being able to talk to my good friend and a good man every week. So let's make sure we stay in touch, buddy.
I don't think I've ever teared up on a podcast. What are we doing?
I know, sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity 7 years ago for letting me do this for so long. And yeah, our friendship means a ton to me. I'm not dying.
Yeah, I know. I just got a little into it. So.
No, I know. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I had a comment on social media somewhere. Someone was like, "Oh, like I'm missing you on the internet." I was like, I'm still on the internet. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, this show is special. This chapter has been really special to me, and I can say all of those things back to you. Like, you've been a great friend to me,
sure.
A great mentor. I know we don't like to talk about our age difference, but you've been a great mentor to me. As someone who has a lot of experience in lots of different areas. Your kids are older than mine, right? You've had an internet career for a long time. Like, all the things we talk about offline are important to me and will continue to be important to me in the future. We're just not going to be sitting down Tuesday at lunch every week talking about computers for other people to hear. That's really the only difference I see in our relationship now. It's like, all the other stuff's still there. And I do look forward to coming back at some point, maybe I'll secretly become a Vision Pro user and surprise you on a future episode. No, I'm just kidding. That probably won't be the case, but, yeah, thank you. And thank you to the community for embracing me and for being so kind, in this transition. And, this will always be a treasured part of my career.
All right. With that, we're going to wrap it up, gang. Thanks for listening. Thank you again, Stephen, for 7 great years on Mac Power Users. Thanks to our sponsor, 1Password today, and thanks to our supporters who are helping keep the lights on here. If you want to get the ad-free extended version of the show, go over to relay.fm/MPU. You can come and check it out. Stephen Robles and I have big ideas for you if you are a subscriber. Either way, if you are a subscriber, stick around. We're going to talk a little bit more meta about the whole transition. And otherwise, we'll see you next week with Stephen Robles as the new co-host of the Mac Power Users.